was my bottom line. Well, from the start, I engaged in the deliberations on the train, from the interpellation all the way up to the amendments, with the end in view of voting for it if it kept its promise among three objectives: to lighten the tax burden on the poor, to make our tax system more modern, more progressive, while at the same time, with equal value, generating the revenues that government needs for its programs, including its declared centerpiece infrastructure program. And that's why my main proposed amendment was to lower the VAT rate from the current 12% to the 10%. And at the outset, that was already eminently a very reasonable proposition, because legislators will remember that in 2005, when the EVAT law was first passed, the original proposal in the bill was 10%. It's just that the former president, Macapagal Arroyo, as she was allowed to under the law, raised the rate to 12%. So it would have been a very reasonable step to lower it back to the originally intended 10% for next year. And I had a further proposal that by year 2022, as long as the Secretary of Finance could certify that the revenues from VAT already accounted for 4.5% of our gross domestic product. In Thailand now, VAT accounts for 4.3%. If we could hit 4.5% by year 2022, that the VAT rate here would be lowered further to 8%, just to make it equal with the VAT regime. We're not competitive. We're always saying we want to be competitive, and we want to give an equal chance for poorer Filipinos, and there are about 1.7 million wage earner-headed households who are already classified as near poor. Give them more of a fighting chance. Buy the products, pay for the services, so to contribute to taxes in general through that consumption. The pushback for, well, I guess, in my explanation of no vote to the train bill, I said I don't question my colleagues' motives or their own logic, or even the good faith of the Department of Finance in trying to more efficiently operationalize the tax system. But unfortunately, I was one of the few to see the wisdom of a lowered VAT rate. I wish that we could have given more time, a more calm, simmer down time to consider the wisdom of this, because this, even more than the lowered personal income tax, which was good, I supported that, even more than the unconditional cash transfers, which I also supported, but I wish could have been provided to be given over a longer period of time, more than the 3 years in the final bill. Because after all, I said, earmarks are just for a limited number of years, but revenues are forever. And then this is the additional thing, Annalisa, in addition to not agreeing to lower the VAT rates in 2 steps so as to lighten the tax burden on the poor, because VAT is an indirect regressive tax. It hits the poor proportionately much more than middle class and certainly the rich. Even after my proposal to lower the VAT rate was rejected, I held on to the possibility of voting for the train bill because of the earmarks, the social mitigating measures that the Department of Finance and the Senate itself included in the bill from the get-go. But first,
but they lowered the earmarks.
Exactly.
Which programs were these?
That was the deal breaker for me. I said, what is, of course, aside from the increased tax on coal, on mining, which I also supported, but the deal breaker for me was, okay, no more lowered VAT rate, which was my bottom line, but now lowering the earmarks. First, they were limited to 40% of revenues, and then further lowered to 27%. So, we're going to raise so much more revenues through doubling the documentary stamp tax, etc. There's an increased excise tax on sugar-sweetened beverages, for example, but to not equally lighten the burden on those who are less able to bear the tax burden, the poor and near poor Filipinos. It just wasn't fair.
Yeah, and that's why you decided to go against
it. That's why I voted against the train bill. I felt it's really too bad. I felt the train bill, or the Senate in passing the train bill in its form, this form, that we missed an historic opportunity to make the tax system more progressive. And to what purpose? To lighten the tax burden on the poor, enable them more to participate in the economy and lift themselves out of poverty.
Well, now
Jackson for Senator number 33 sa balota.